of the history of the United States, there has only ever been one woman awarded the Medal of Honor. Dr. Mary Edwards Walker is that woman. Dr. Walker has supported a profusion of feminist movements and has had various responsibilities. Compared to the other civilians of her society, she was advanced in her time and considered things that most people don't acknowledge.
What influenced Mary to become who she became? Her dad, Alva Walker, and was a very progressive person, had great vision for the future, and he influenced her in so many ways and encouraged her.
Mary Edwards Walker was born in Oswego, New York, to Alva and Vesta Whitcomb Walker. Mary strongly admired her father. He had encouraged her to use her knowledge to stand up for what she believed in. Later in the years, he opened a school for both boys and girls, as he felt everyone should have a proper learning system. Her parents motivated Mary to think freely of herself and told her and her sisters to wear what were called bloomer pants instead of the long skirts required to be worn by women at the time. Both of her parents had no idea of what would come of their daughter in her later years.
Well, as a woman, she just wanted to prove that a female, a woman, had the rights that a male had. And again, I say that was one of her big hindrances in trying to do anything medically, is because women were not accepted, and even as far as in the medical field.
In 1855, Walker received her physician's certificate and graduated from Syracuse Medical College. Later, she started a medical practice in Rome, New York. However, it wasn't favored because the public didn't want to accept a female doctor. This is an excerpt from Dr. Walker's book, Hit Essays on Women's Rights. With woman's enfranchisement comes her unqualified individuality. Without it, just so much or so little as men choose to allow her, and that allowance is according to the preconceived opinions or prejudice with the men in whom she's related. In the 19th century, women's responsibilities were to care for their household and children, so it was challenging for her to aspire to become a surgeon.
Social expectations in Dr. Mary Walker. Well, she turned everything on its head. Unlike your typical women in the Victorian age, she believed that women had every right to do what a man had, including speak out against injustice.
When the Civil War began, Walker wanted to join the Union's efforts. She went to Washington but was denied because she was a woman, and at the time, women couldn't participate in the medical field. She then decided to go to the U.S. Patent Office to become a volunteer surgeon. They had no female surgeons, but they then allowed Mary to practice as a nurse in temporary hospitals. Around 1863, her request to be a surgeon was finally approved, and she became the first female surgeon by the Army of the Cumberland.
One of Dr. Mary Walker's biggest challenges as a female surgeon during the Civil War was that she was one of a kind and a groundbreaker. There had never been a female surgeon before, and she was not accepted by the Army, by other surgeons. They simply wouldn't let her practice.
The greatest challenge that Dr. Walker faced while in the Army was being accepted by all of the men and other surgeons. She was completely against the expectations of women in her century. She often crossed battle lines to care for other soldiers. She was arrested as she was accused of being a spy. While in prison, she refused to wear the women's clothes that were provided to her. She felt that men's clothes were far more comfortable and hygienic. At the time, women were compelled to wear long skirts, which were very uncomfortable to move and look in. In the later years, Walker helped change that. While in a military prison, Walker's experiences were terrible. She got severe eyesight loss and had to end her medical career as a result.
After the Civil War, she was only 33 years old, and she was full of energy and passion. She spent the rest of her life campaigning for dress reform and women's rights.
Dr. Mary Edwards Walker had made history as the first female surgeon to serve in the U.S. Army, as she proved that women were just as capable of excelling in roles traditionally reserved for men. She thought that the responsibilities that women had were unreasonable, and they were far more capable than they were thought out to be. As a surgeon during the Civil War, she exemplified her dedication and expertise in the medical field, earning herself the Medal of Honor in 1865 from President Andrew Johnson. Towards the end of her medical practice, she began advocating for women's rights. She famously dressed like a man to advocate dress reform. Dress reform is a social movement in the 19th century advocating for an item of more comfortable and practical clothing for women, advocating to change the required clothing of women at the time. During her dress reformation, she traveled a lot to promote women's causes such as women's suffrage.
She tried to vote. She believed women inherently had the right to vote. The Constitution included all people. So an amendment was not needed. Men just needed to let them vote.
The way that women dressed, as I said, was so unhealthy, and a lot of the women didn't understand her approach at that time, and that her activism with dress reform hindered some of her expectations for women's rights, and that's really what broke her away from, one of the things that broke her away from the regular other suffragists.
Dr. Walker had very escalating opinions regarding women's rights. She even argued with the women's suffrage movement over their struggle for an amendment to the Constitution allowing women to vote. She believed that the Constitution had already given the woman the power to vote. Dr. Walker has spent most of her time advocating for dress reform. She thought that women could wear whatever they wanted to wear, and they didn't need someone else telling them what to do. She herself had spent her entire life wearing pants or dresses, as she proved her point. She had famously quoted, "I don't wear men's clothes, I wear my own clothes."
The public viewed Dr. Walker as a social outcast. They thought that what she was doing was unreasonable, and even women didn't accept her. They thought she was strange, and people were even scared of her because they simply didn't understand what she was doing. Even other advocates like Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton wouldn't include her or kick her out of their meetings because they thought that what she was doing was unnecessary. They were more traditional, and they thought that the clothing style for women was fine. Walker had been arrested several times because of her clothing choices. They often ignored her on the streets because they thought something was wrong with her. Eventually, there was a handful of women, and soon men too, who supported her advocacy and stood beside her.
Dr. Walker faced a lot of challenges because of her social activism. First of all, she lived in extreme poverty at the end of her life. She had appealed for a pension as soon as she got out of the Civil War, but because she was not technically in the Army, they did not give her a pension.
Personal hardships that Dr. Walker had faced during her social advocacy included poverty. She was very poor. She would often earn money through speeches and from working on the farm. People would see her as an outcast and unusual. Even her own family ostracized her. Many people considered Mary as a radical advocate. She suffered a lot through her views and faced many hardships independently. In 1919, the Medal of Honor was revoked from Dr. Walker and many others of government action. Even though she was asked to return it, she disagreed and said no. She had worn it till her death. Dr. Walker died February 21, 1919. In Oswego, New York, in 1977, President Jimmy Carter restored the Medal of Honor to Mary. Walker then later depicted on the United States postal stamp as an Army surgeon and Medal of Honor recipient. In 2023, the U.S. Mint announced that Dr. Walker would appear on the 2024 Women's Quarter program. A statue in Dr. Walker's honor was built in 2012, and it says, "I have got to die before people will know who I am and what I have done. It's a shame that people who lead reforms in this world are not appreciated until after their death. Then the world pays tributes." Because people started appreciating Walker when she died and were grateful for all the things that she did after she died.
Mary making, such an obvious example of herself in fighting for the rights of women doctors, did make some inroads in attitudes of the medical profession and the Army in allowing women to serve.
Dr. Mary Edwards Walker was the first female surgeon in the U.S. Army and the first female to earn the Medal of Honor. The world continued to see more of women in the medical profession towards the end of the late 19th century and the start of the 20th century. She advocated for women's rights, was a social advocate, campaigned for women's suffrage, and advocated for dress reform. She had fought alongside a lot of great people to make this happen, and her responsibilities were endless, as she was a women's rights advocate, an abolitionist, and much more. The amount of work she put in is truly inspirational.